1600 BC. Two new powers are pushing into Mesopotamia. The Hittites, an unknown huge army, ravaged the city of Aleppo and conquered the region of Yamahad. There they built defensive fortifications in the south and continued their campaign towards Babylon. Many Semites and Amorites fled to neighboring areas south, towards Egypt. There they joined forces with the Hebrews living there, the descendants of Canaan, under the flag of Hyksos, and conquered the upper parts of Egypt. Shortly before, the pharaoh Hatshepsut had led numerous expeditions and campaigns to Nubia and incurred the wrath of the Nubian kingdom of Kerma. The invasion from Nubia. Egyptians weakened by the Ethiopian kingdom of Kerma were completely overrun and reduced to the region of Thebes, in the middle of Egypt, which served as a vassal state of the Hyksos. The Hyksos, militarily superior, with previously unknown weapons, like the horse-drawn two-wheeled war chariot or the advanced composite bow, took over Egypt. Shortly afterwards, resistance arose. The Egyptians adopted modern warfare and fought back, only under Pharaoh Ahmose I, who prevented an alliance between Hyksos and the kingdom of Kerma by intercepting the messengers. Then, through Amenhotep I, with the first campaigns into the south of Egypt, he shook off the yoke of the kingdom of Kerma. And finally, through Thutmose I, around the year 1500 BC. After a year-long campaign to the south, he regained Egypt's original territories and made peace with the kingdom of Kerma. Then he turned his attention to the north. His campaigns to the north were only the beginning and were continued by Thutmose II and Thutmose III. The Egyptian pharaoh, in his time, had slaves. The Nile Valley was the most fertile spot far and wide, and the wild men who were abducted from the desert quickly got used to full bellies, beautiful clothes, and impressive buildings, and were ready to help their pharaoh reconquer. More or less. A large city-state, a rare metropolis at the time, had 3,000 to 5,000 men ready for war. A kingdom, up to 10,000. A pharaoh had slaves. First he reconquered all of Egypt from the Hyksos. So began Pharaoh's campaign to the north, to Canaan. He drove Hyksos out of the northern areas of Egypt and advanced further north via the Gaza Strip, towards Megiddo. One of the first known major battles of antiquity, around 1457 BC. Armageddon is associated with the city of Megiddo in the Bible. It's about the four horsemen of the apocalypse and many plagues. Maybe a lot of people just lost an eye. But perhaps the Bible prophecy simply has not yet been fulfilled. The battles at this time were as follows. There weren't many helmets or armor. The composite bow had a usable range. Archers shot each other with blunt arrows until they ran out of arrows. Then they attacked each other with axes. The horse-drawn chariot served as a fast cavalry archer and provided some cover from the horses and log cart. The pharaoh demonstrated in advance his determination and the determination of his slaves, as well as his divine power in countless victories, and made it clear to the shepherd kings who is in charge. The defenders retreated to Megiddo and closed the gates. It is said that 1 or 2 people were dragged over the wall by Tide Laundry. Megiddo were starved and surrendered after 7 months of siege. In 1457 BC, Thutmose III defeated, in the Battle of Megiddo, the Canaanite princes to open up a land route to Syria. At this time, the rulers of Canaan were being oppressed by a second power, the Hittites in the north. The focus of the Anatolian Hittites was clearly on Babylon. But Pharaoh Thutmose III expanded further north, purely for safety reasons. So he came across the Hittites, who were about to take over all of Babylon. After the sack of Babylon, the king of the Hittites was unable to maintain his power. After internal disputes, the king of the Hittites succumbed to an assassination attempt. As usual, Mesopotamia descended into chaos, the wild hordes of the Kassites, also called Dothraki, were able to conquer Babylon in the fray. That was the end of the old Babylonian Empire. The Hatti descended into rebellions and went through a process of forming independent city-states ruled by autonomous rulers. New empires arose out of nothing, like the merger of the Hurrians. A split of the Hatti to the kingdom of Mittani, which rose up against Assur, rebelled and conquered the Assyrians. The borders of the three kingdoms met in Canaan: Egypt, Hatti, and the Mittani. Egypt continued its campaigns to the north, out of pure defiance because of possible invaders, without knowing what's waiting there. They have never expanded so far before. The Mittani fought a three-front war and focused on the west, Syria, the upper parts of Canaan. For some time they became the dominant power in the region. But Egypt and the Hatti had agreed to a formal alliance. So the areas in the upper part of Canaan changed hands again and again. And they had to be reconquered again and again by the pharaohs. There were numerous battles between the Mittani and the Egyptians. The Hatti currently supported the rightful Assyrian claimant to the throne. It was not until 1450 AD that Assyria, through a rebellion, was able to surprise the Mittani, weakened by war, and recapture parts of its territories. Many areas of the Mittani fell to the Hatti, who once again assumed a dominant position in the region. Through a merger of numerous empires, the Hittites became the Great Empire of Hatti. So initially only two players remained. The areas in Syria, Upper Canaan, changed again. And there were numerous battles between the Hatti and the Egyptians, such as under Pharaoh Ramses II, the Battle of Kadesh at 1274, or the Battle of Dapur at 1271. Many loincloths were used again with blunt arrows. Many lost an eye. Many battles went down in the annals. Then the battles where many have lost an eye. The Assurs turned to Babylon, under the Kassites, and slowly regained their old strength. The Elamites also repeatedly waged wars against the empires of Mesopotamia. There was no peace, only war. Egypt's war against the Hittite Empire for control of northern Canaan produced no clear winner in the period that followed. Rule over the Syrian cities changed again and again. Only when the Assyrian Empire in the north became a threat to the Hittites did the Hittite Empire close in 1259 BC. BC signed a peace treaty with Egypt because they wanted to avoid a war on two fronts. The Egyptian-Hittite peace treaty is considered the oldest written peace agreement. His excerpts hang in the UN building in New York. But things turned out very differently than expected. At the other end of the known world, Crete, Atlantis, Zeus. Hercules defeats the Hydra. A new power is coming to light. The Mycenaean Greeks from the mainland conquered the Minoan culture based on Crete. The Bronze Age is coming to an end. The areas of Mesopotamia and Iraq, rich in bronze, lost military superiority with the advent of iron. The end of the Bronze Age ushered in the Dark Ages, from which little is known.